Dozens of Jedi pile inside the quantum rust. Arden sits observing all the strange beings. Waddle sits beside her.
"Your name's Waddle?"
Arden asked. The droid nods.
"Don't you talk?"
The droid shakes his head.
"Oh. I'm still getting used to all these lights. These machines that fly. I don't understand them. Or you, for that matter. Are you alive?"
Waddle blankly stares.
"I guess in a galaxy where people can wield swords of light and make objects move without touching them, anything's possible."
Waddle rests his domed head on Arden's side. Rain sits in the cockpit, observing the view. Lucius Pike studies the control panels. "What does this do?" he asks.
"That's the choke for the pre-landing sequence. You hit that, then you flip that switch to start the landing sequence."
Lucius subtly shakes his head. "Ships were so much simpler last time I flew," Lucius judged. "You turned a key card, the engines turned over, you pushed the transmission into flight, and you were off. Now there's all these buttons and screens."
"I'm sure it's a little overwhelming," Rain encouraged. "With time, you'll adjust, and you might even enjoy flying the starships of today. You won't find models like the ones you describe. They're all discontinued and lost to time."
Lucius remains quiet.
"I wonder how Judah's doing," said Rain.
"He's a good man with a warrior's heart," Lucius nodded. "He will draw blood on this day." Judah and Baron stand several meters apart, but their minds were connected in a deadly mind game of Dejarik. Each movement warranted a shift in stance. A boot slid forward and someone's saber dipped down towards the ground. One switched from an ox pose to a vom tag, and the opponent embraced the Alber position as opposed to the Plu stance. Each combination of poses told a story. Perhaps there was one version of this duel where Judah held his hanging guard, and though he may have preserved his torso and legs, Baron would have surely cut through with a tall arching advance and broke into his upper body, potentially taking off Judah's head, or at the very least cutting off one of his leku. For what seemed an infinite history between the spaces of time, these two pillars of light danced amongst each other, reading one another's souls and determining their quality. It seemed to the Baron Knights who gathered and watched that they may stand in their endless gaze for all the days of the Jedi. The thought of their blades ever meeting for a deadly kiss seemed like an unlikelihood. Until Judah attacked. Baron held his high guard and batted away Judah's attack. The central ridge of Judah Kimono's blade slid across the Jedi Master's block and transitioned into a counter that moved toward the young Jedi's torso. A well-timed evasion saved Judah's life and prolonged the life of the duel. The Baron Knights were almost inclined to cheer and applaud for the masterful display of action and reaction taking place in a matter of milliseconds, but they stayed their hand. For the life of their king was hanging by a careful thread, and none would risk making a sound and distract their leader. Judah reset his position to a Chudan instead of a Kamai, whilst Baron held a Posta di Cuda Longa. "You're a natural," Baron smiled. "I wonder how you spent so much time on the goddess. I expected more from you." "Sorry to disappoint," said Judah. "I'm still a work in progress." "So I've learned from my knights. Is it true you killed your own master during a sparring session?" "It's true. and today I make myself accountable by facing you. The Force will be my judge.
I think you're lying to yourself. You killed your master on purpose, didn't you? You had a point to prove.
I won't let you get in my head. Before Judah could finish his sentence, Baron lunged for the kill, but Judah parried and reset into a pose of a Tenchi Jin. And you won't strike me down the same way you did, Master Ricci. I too have heard of your exploits. You have no honor.
Honor is an obstacle on the road to the greater good, and I have no such weaknesses.
Then let's complete our journeys. Judah tightened the grip of his saber, and in this saber dance, the two selected their choice of stance. The air seemed to leave the room, or perhaps it was more so that none wanted to breathe. The two charged, hurtling their bodies to one another in an offering of blood and sword. A flash, a clang of weapons, the sound of a cut like a song of fire. The sound of boots clicking against the marble floor as they sped past each other, neither daring to look back at the other. The first to fall was Judah. His free hand gripped his eyes, now two smoking heaps of cooked flesh. His scream filled the room. But once the scream echoed and faded away from the monastery, the sound of a second body hitting the floor joined the chorus. Baron slumped onto his side. Half of his waist is slashed through. Ribbons of smoke rose and curled around his right arm and hugged the tall ceiling.
No!
Baron cried.
No!
Judah scrambled in his pockets for a comm device. Now! He gasped. The quantum rust shimmered into view just outside the temple monastery. Dozens of Jedi leaped out of the ramp and poured into the temple, and before the Baron Knights knew what was happening, there was a standstill of two Jedi armies facing down one another. Lay down your weapons, Baron Knights, Master Fisto commanded. Your king is defeated. You have lost.
You don't understand, Baron growled. None of you have ever understood. Shall I succumb to your folly and tell you what I've been preparing us all for? This great threat upon the galaxy is Judah Kimono himself. Why did I travel so far into the future? Why did I live so long in the deserts of the goddess, fighting versions of myself repeatedly to master my skills in preparation for this very day? What is so dangerous about Judah Kimono that I left my brothers and sisters warring against the Rakata Empire? Because in this day where the Sith are dead and gone, Judah Kimono will give rise to a new era of Sith so evil and dark that the entire galaxy will burn in the unquenching fires and bathe in the blood and ashes of children and mothers and fathers. Judah will be the return of the Sith, and he will reform them into worshippers of gore and slime and filth that infects every world with their guile and warmongering. All will know and fear his name, for he will never get enough blood on his hands. He will never break through enough teeth, tear apart enough families, dismember enough infants, or bathe in enough Jedi blood. This is your future without me. And now I am dead, for I have failed you all.
Baron Kuroda pushed himself to his knees, raised his lightsaber, and ran himself through with his blue lightsaber blade. It is all over, he whispered, and Baron Kuroda died. All in the room who bore witness froze. Their lightsabers shut off, and after some time, all eyes fell to Judah, who could not see. It can't be true, Judah grunted, pushing himself to his feet. I do not believe it. But I don't know the future, and I am no prophet. Judah threw his saber off to the side and offered himself to the Jedi amongst him. I give up my title as a Jedi. I offer myself to the judgment of the Masters. All I dare to ask, if there be an inclination to pity, that you give me a merciful and quick death. Zaz Fisto and a Baron Knight looked one another in the eye. The Baron Knight softened his composure to the Jedi Master. The two approached Judah with their sabers in hand. On your knees, Jedi, the Baron Knight commanded. Judah complied. The two ignited their lightsabers and held them to each of Judah's shoulders. The Baron Knight and the Jedi Master spoke in turn. By the will of the light, by the right of the Masters, rise, a knight of the Jedi way. A humbled Judah Kimono rose to his feet. Baron Knights and Jedi alike helped Judah to the medical bay. Let this knighting be a covenant amongst the Jedi, the Baron Knight spoke to Zazan. I and all who took the life of other Jedi will go into exile. The rest will reform under the watch and the counsel of you and other masters. What say you? With a somber heart, I accept these terms, Zazan declared. The knights entered the prison hall and released all the Jedi held captive, including Dato Daruna. The Quantum Rust lands in the hangar bay attached to the monastery. Rain, Arden, Waddle, and Lucius leave the ship as a Jedi approaches them with news. Judah Kimono has defeated Baron Corona. He's in the medical bay right now. He'll be all right. What about the war? Lucius asked. There will be none. The day is saved, the Jedi said proudly as he left the hangar. Rain let out a sigh of relief. Come on, let's go see him. Judah's friends leave the hangar except Lucius, whose eyes meet a rusted bucket of bolts in the far corner of the starship bay. Beskar's Bane, Lucius muttered. It was an ancient-looking ship, maybe to some, but to Lucius, it was a starship his hands would find familiar. He climbed into the cockpit of the ship. I know these controls, he said, clasping the keycard. He turned over the engine and pushed the transmission to flight. He took one last glance at the Quantum Rust and flew off into the sunset. In the medical bay, Dato ran inside to see her long-lost friend. Judah! I know that voice, Judah smiled. She ran to his side and clung to him. Rain, Arden, and Waddle entered next. Judah! Rain cried out. Oh no! Your eyes, Judah! It's okay, buddy. Your eyes, Judah! Look at what they've done to you! I can't, Rain. A brief pause suddenly brought everyone to laughter. The sun was setting on what was becoming a good and faithful night. Within the next 2 days, the Baron Knights who took the life of other Jedi built a commune on the isolated world of Bosha. The rest were counseled and rehabilitated under the supervision of Master Fisto and other masters. The Jedi Way was under a grand reformation. There was to be no Jedi King, no Grand Master, never one Jedi to direct the ways of the others. All decisions were casted under vote by each Jedi after assigned sessions of meditation. The Way had reformed into a new age order. Judah had taken Baron Kuroda's body and prepared it for a ceremonial burning, though none joined him, at least for a time. While Baron's body burned on the pyre, Dato softly approached Judah and stood next to him. Can I stand here beside you? She asked. Please, he said. Your presence has always calmed me. The two watched in silence and listened to the sound of the crackling flames and the chirping of bioluminescent insects. How have you taken the words of Baron? Dato questioned further. Most Jedi have disregarded them. They say Baron Kuroda was insane. While I was trapped on the goddess, Judah mused, I fought the dark side version of myself. I have wondered since then if I was fighting a future version of myself or simply an evil idea. I do not think I'll ever know for sure. I often neglect the cliché texts in our Jedi teachings, Dato admitted. But sometimes words so simple are words so effective. Which text are you thinking of? The words of Master Qui-Gon Jinn. Be mindful of the living force, and do not center on your own anxiety. Keep your concentration here and now, for it belongs there. Simple and effective, Judah smirked, though easier spoken than accomplished. But is that not the quest of the Jedi? Dato put her arm around Judah's. To do what is most difficult? Perhaps it is.